Welcome everybody to today's 6th installment of the District Coaches Leadership Project. Yes, thank you, Lisa. In the PowerPoint that you have, the very first thing I have hyperlinked is the DSFI. Talk about some important dates and ways for you to be active in the network. Then we're going to move to Kelsey providing an overview of Section 8 of the DSFI, modeling for you components of the program evaluation process, and that we're not asking for more work, we're asking for you to do smarter work. So we want you to see how these different components, you probably are, this is probably the area you will score the strongest if you realize all the connections that we already have in place for you for many of these measures. So I really do feel good as one of the primary authors on our program evaluation for the state about our network. Our network is super active. So dates for you to save. As district coaches, you are going to be invited for the first time to our network summit. I affectionately call it the hoedown, the network summit, which is open to just our provisional and independent facilitators. This is going to take place on September 24th, and I'll tell you more why that's important that you consider attending that. And it will be virtual. I want to parallel this date saver with how Pennsylvania works and your network works. So that's a local Pennsylvania thing, our network summit. Right. Then I want to share with you the National Leadership Conference, the National PBISers, the thing that Kelly Perales helps to coordinate. That conference it's virtual this year, right, Kelly?
It is, yes.
Is virtual October 26th, 27th, and 28th. It is virtual. If you can attend this, it is an awesome event for you to get information. The Leadership Conference is something for you all to consider attending. And Kelly, anything you want to say about the Leadership Conference this year?
I think, Tina, I would reinforce your points that it's an excellent opportunity to hear from implementers at the state, regional, district, and school level. Unlike a typical conference where people submit proposals, this is really a technical assistance opportunity. And so our center partners hand select our exemplars to share in the various strands. And we also have some single session topics on day one. It's really reasonable in terms of cost. It's $50 again this year. All of the sessions will be recorded and available. We're going to have lots of opportunities for participant interaction. We're posting videos. There's going to be a poster session this time. So it's a really great opportunity to get a lot of excellent content at minimal cost.
Thanks, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a national conference to even see what a bigger network we're a part of. The next one, please mark this down in your calendar. It's the PaPBS Implementers Forum in collaboration with our academic partners. So overall, the whole conference is known as Equity is MTS Conference. I just highlighted the PaPBS Implementers portion of it because that's what many of you are very familiar with. On November 10th, it will be as traditional the forum can be in a virtual setting. So we have out what's in the next large bullet below is a request for proposal. That's to present virtually on November 10th. The forms to apply, potentially present at our portion of it, November 10th. You just click on this Google form, and all of your proposals need to be submitted by July 15th. So you have some time. So I really want to encourage you. You've been part of this district leadership project. It would be really nice, maybe a couple of you, maybe different LEAs could get together, submit a proposal together, just share what you're doing with the other network, with the other schools within our network. Catherine, anything you want to add to that?
Not at this moment. It's going to be great. There's a lot of energy that's going into it and just really a purposeful integration. So
yeah, we have our opening keynote is Clay Cook. And our closing keynote is Dr. Erica McDowell. And so we just have to fill in the other 18 sessions. Coaches Day. This is for your building level coaches. This is for you. This is put on through the help of our local facilitators, and it will be virtual again this year. Ron, how many folks did we have attend Coaches Day last year? Do you recall?
I think we topped out around 550.
So we saw that that was quite a well attended option. So we're going to be doing that again, and that is January 20th. Weather is not an issue since we'll be logging in virtually. And then the last one, now I'm going to finalize the dates down here with another national opportunity, and that is the Association for Positive Behavior Support. And their conference is in March 2nd through the 4th. This year they are doing a hybrid, and it is a combination of hybrid, that's what I want to say, and it's taking place in San Diego. I did hear that there might be a rumor that Kent McIntosh could be our opening keynote for that one. And so the APBS conference, the difference between PBIS.org and the association is beyond school application of PBIS. It's about all other walks of life in the workplace, in the community, in family. It expands from birth till geriatrics. So the Association for Positive Behavior Support, school is just one piece of applying the PBIS framework. So those are dates. The other thing is request for proposals. Work with your network facilitator on coming up with a title, and more details will come out regarding that. If you click on the Google form, there's supports there for you to complete it. All right, for you as district folks in this project, the DSFI is going to be completed, needs to be completed by June 4th, uploaded into PTrack, and I'll explain that. You will see exactly what I'm talking about, but your DSFI needs to be uploaded into PTrack. One of the things that I'm going to point out today, Ron's going to support me with this as well, is we want you to realize your access to PTrack and what it can do for you. All right, one more thing before we get out of this is participation status. I just want to reiterate that this year we will be recognizing in November schools that just maintain participation. And I don't mean just, like maintaining participation in the network during a pandemic is, the word just should just be erased from my vocabulary. So folks are asking, what's recognition? What's recognition? Recognition details for the 21-22 school year will be announced on September 24th. Because you are now so much a part of the intricacies of the network and supporting your district at large, I recommend that you attend that September 24th meeting so you can hear too about what will be the requirements for recognition. Part of this push to have all of you as district level folks become more involved in the network is so that your network facilitators can start doing the things that you all can spearhead more so. So that September 24th, you're not required to attend, but that's where we announce, here are all the requirements for the 21-22 school year. I will tell you, one thing that will be required is maintenance of participation status. So if you have school buildings that you're supporting and your local facilitator is saying, let's get the TFI done, let's get whatever fidelity measure it is, and we'll talk about that as we move forward, whatever self-assessment it is, those things need to be completed. We don't care about the scores. We just need them to be completed and an action plan to be developed. That's phase 2 of participation. So you're hearing that right from us. And I would say at base, that is a requirement for recognition in 21-22.
I hope you're doing well.
Got it.
I hope you're having a great week. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be with you live and in person today, but what I do want to make sure is that we take a quick moment to do an overview to kind of orient you to this new session, this new strand of the DSFI. So in this video, we're going to be kind of giving you a little teaser, little preview of coming attractions, all about section 8, which is the evaluation section. And in this section, we're really talking about how you as a district leadership team are keeping your fingers on the pulse of what's going on across tiers, across grade levels, across campuses, for the purpose of being able to support in new and different ways, to really see how are we progressing implementation, what can we as a district leadership team do to further implementation progress, do we need to kind of provide some differentiated supports to really enhance what's going on, And with the evaluation section, we're talking about the data that we collect to really inform our decision-making, to guide our progress, and also to be able to turn it around and share with stakeholders the great work that's being done. So let's take a closer look at this section and make sure that you are set up for success. So I mentioned we're talking about the evaluation section. And really, if we take a closer look, we can understand we're connecting everything back to that district systems fidelity inventory, the DSFI. So when you're administering the DSFI, this is section 8, or sometimes we call it strand 8. And so you see how it fits in with all those other implementation drivers. We would consider evaluation to be there in those implementation functions, those green level drivers. So we've talked about a lot of these so far, and you can see we're kind of wrapping everything up when it comes to the DSFI. So let's activate just a little background knowledge. So you see here those implementation functions again. We started many moons ago with leadership teaming, really owning our responsibility as those leaders within the district to create that larger infrastructure. And that's really what we're doing. We're building systems. We're building systems to support staff. And it just looks a little bit different than some systems that are in those buildings or at that campus level, because we always talk about systems to support staff. And now we're talking about it across the district. So with the leadership team, you've got those executive team functions, which were stakeholder engagement, funding and alignment, policy, workforce capacity. We're kind of setting the stage for good work to be done. And then you've also got those implementation functions in that green row below. We talked about training, making sure that people have the knowledge, skills, and ability. And then we talked about coaching, and we talked about how coaching is what happens between training events, where it's that really conversational, supportive, let me move you from good to great type mentality and those different activities that your internal coaches are offering to campus level staff and faculty. What we're going to be doing today is moving into evaluation. Now, last session with coaching, you were kind of tasked with a few takeaway items. You wanted to identify what are the orientation materials or events that we're providing. As well, you wanted to explore the ongoing support that's offered between training events and examine who can function as a district coach and then what are the supports that are offered to those coaches at all levels. So I don't want us to move too far into evaluation without also kind of considering these were our takeaway tasks. So these are things as you're moving forward and getting ready to take the DSFI, or if you are taking the DSFI with your team currently, really think about these things to really make sure that you've got a good understanding of what's happening in your district related to coaching. Back to evaluation. So here with this new section, we're talking about this new driver. With evaluation, we're looking at 11 different items. We're starting with an evaluation plan. And that's kind of what we always do. When we start something, we start with a plan. Where do we want to go? What's the vision? Where are we headed here? And so with the evaluation plan, it's multiple years. So we're trying to think about things in terms of a long-term plan, maybe 3 to 5 years. And we're thinking about the type of data we're going to need, the questions we want answers to. So we're really putting our good thinking hats on, so to speak, and taking that long view to understand, we know this isn't going to happen overnight. We know it's not going to happen in 1 year, but what are the indicators we want to pay attention to know that we are moving forward across time? You're also talking about those data collection systems. So if you've got the plan, you want to have the data collection systems in place to feed in the activity of that plan. And so with data collection systems, we got many buildings in a district, several campuses. We want common data across those campuses to really help us get that district level view. 8.3 evaluation feedback loops. When we bring data in, we're collecting data for district level purposes or collecting data for our internal coaches. We want to then feed that data back out, create that loop where the data we collect gets shared back with building level coaches and building level teams so they can understand how they're doing at their building and use that data to inform action planning and problem solving. 8.4 is about differentiated supports. When we take that data in, we want to be able to understand how different campuses are doing and then use that data to provide targeted supports at those campuses. Hopefully, you're starting to see some connections between how we use data at the district level and how we would use data at even the building level. There's lots of connections here in terms of how data gets used to drive and guide decision making. With 8.5, that's the assessment and evaluation process. So if 8.1 is the plan, we've got the vision and the idea for how we're going to evaluate this work. 8.5 is actually the process. Here are the actionable steps we're going to take, a very concrete, thought out, sequential process for how we're actually going to achieve the plan we came up with in 8.1. 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8 are really about advanced tiers. So tiers 2 and 3, students that we are providing targeted supports for, students that we're providing intensive individualized supports for. We started our work together back in December when we talked about leadership teaming. We also talked about how this work at the district level is really about creating an infrastructure so that building teams don't have to own by themselves the advanced tiers. Building teams can do tier 1. They can do universals. Once they kind of get that training, get that prerequisite knowledge, they're kind of good to go in terms of building the systems, establishing the practices, and using the data in their own building to keep tier 1 going and to work towards Fidelity. When we get to the advanced tiers, those require oftentimes more access to resources, more access to expertise. And we don't want the building to have to own that responsibility, where we can work smarter, not harder, be more strategic, be more efficient if we kind of organize that from a district perspective. We kind of work to the advantage of each and every child in each and every building when we do that. So 8.6, 8.7, 8.8 is really owning that responsibility as a district level team and looking at how are we using our data to drive and guide what we're doing at those advanced tiers. So student identification data, do we have enough students being served in the yellow zone? So for example, if we were to consider that in the yellow zone, it's usually about 10 to 15% of a campus population, does that match how many students we're actually serving? Student performance data, how are students doing? When we take check in, check out into consideration, are students being successful with that intervention or whatever our intervention is? How many students are making progress? How many students are being successful? How many students have we graduated or faded from an intervention in a given academic year? So again, 8.6, 8.7, 8.8 is really looking at data regarding advanced tiers. 8.9 is the annual evaluation. So at the end of the year, does the district have a process in place to do an annual evaluation, to look at implementation, again, across tiers, across grade levels, really get that district perspective on how did the year go with implementation? How many students did we reach? How many campuses did we reach? What were the events we put in process? Maybe our training or PD or coaching events. At the same time, it's also talking about fidelity of implementation data. 8.10, acknowledgement of progress. How are we sharing that data back out to inform stakeholders, both internally and externally, about the great work that's being done, really acknowledging what's happening. And then 8.11 is internal evaluation capacity. As a district, have we built the capacity to do this work regularly? collect the data, use the data to inform decision making? Can we do that on our own? So that's a quick preview of what's coming here in this strand, all about evaluation. I know you're going to have a great session, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.
If you open up the DSFI itself, and you can go to that fillable form if you want to, and open up and read the description of 8.2. So with 8.2, and I actually, in theory, hyperlinked that here for you if you just wanted to click on it. But in 8.2, it says here, district and school level data systems are in place to promote consistent collection and entry, reflect on range of settings and stakeholders, identify schools and classrooms needing additional training, and enable continuous decision-making. And you can see here, data system reports, PBIS fidelity data. That's if you know about the tiered fidelity inventory, the benchmarks of quality, the team implementation checklist, any of those. Student outcome data. When your network facilitators are saying, I need your annual data, that's those hard numbers, number of out-of-school suspensions, number of office discipline referrals, various things, and we'll talk more about that. And then looking at district reports. For some of you, the network facilitators, you've been doing some of the work with Dr. Tim Nasser around the PAYS data. And some of you at the district level will be aware of the PAYS data. Perhaps your school, your LEA went through that survey. That's more data that you can pull into place to start looking at school climate, the behavioral challenges that may be going on in your building, in your buildings across the district. So in this, when we look at what we're asking you to do from a network view, you have in place self-assessment survey and school safety survey. When a building first comes into the network, they're asked to have all the staff complete that self-assessment survey and that school safety survey as a baseline. The network facilitators will recognize that that data, that baseline data, is then used through our entire training protocol as we say, here's what the staff says is not in place, here's what they say is a priority, and here's what we've designed as a practice through our curriculum that we take you through. One of our visions going forward is that as you become more comfortable, you will begin to partner with your network facilitator. And as you start to onboard more buildings, or maybe there's changeover, that you'll take over the training at the tier 1 level, and that your network facilitators can now start getting into the work of advanced tiers. So the self-assessment survey, the school safety survey is part, that's something I want you to be aware of, and we'll talk about where that is and how you have access to it in a bit. The next one is implementation fidelity measures, okay? When you guys go through your training protocol, when each building goes through a training protocol, at the end of the training protocol, there is a fidelity measure that we ask you to complete and submit. In most cases, we hope that it's the team implementation checklist, the TIC. Some of your network facilitators use the benchmarks of quality. Either one, we just need that to signify the end of the training protocol. That's considered baseline. That's considered your school is now officially a trained school in the district, in the state system. So then every spring, your network facilitators are calling you up or texting you or DMing you or whatever form of getting a hold of you to say, hey, we need to do either this benchmarks of quality, or we need to do the tiered fidelity inventory. So that happens every spring. That's to go back and look, how did we do with this thing called tier 1 implementation of PBIS? And as we move into the advanced tiers, we use the tiered fidelity inventory to say, how did we do with that advanced tier work? Then every year we have this thing called annual data. And before you start the training protocol or during your training year, we ask you to provide baseline data. As district coaches, if you're onboarding a new building, you're going to gather up this baseline data and you'll have the support of your network. But I just wanted you to show you, we're helping you to collect these data systems as part of the requirements of the network. And then every spring at the end of the school year, we gather up the annual data. Now what I'm going to do is show you where those things are. So we have all of these online supports. And there are Pennsylvania online supports, that are just Pennsylvania, meaning we develop these just ourselves. And then there's these nationally supported sites. We use both. Just like the technical assistance you get Pennsylvania support, statewide, locally. You also get national support like Kelly and Kelsey, PBIS Leadership Conference I talked about, the Association of Positive Behavior Support. So there is this combination of the state and the national partners working together to support you. The key is, which one do you use for which thing? As Kelsey said, we've been building you up to this point to get you to see that now you've done all this hard work. Like if you're doing the DSFI and you can check doing it, and you're action planning around the things that you haven't, you get to the point of you want to see, is all this hard work really paying off? That's this DSFI. The DSFI helps you to action plan and see what you're doing and having that program evaluation. So I do encourage you, if you haven't attended the sessions, you want to see all the different pieces. There are some that I know I'm going back to watch because there's some great resources in there and great places to gather some ideas on how I could adapt it from the state level. So in order to find that information, you're going to go to find all the district coaches recordings, you go on PaPBS.org. All right. These two are designed by us. PTrack did not exist 18 years ago. The website did not exist, 12 years ago. Nationally, okay, we use PBIS Apps. There is the PBIS.org that is an informational resource. And so I want to welcome you to PTrack. You get the ticket to PTrack. And Ron has set up, right, Ron has set up all of you as, if you weren't in there, there he shows up. If you weren't in there as district coaches, you are now in there. This is a brand new setting. I think Gina's in here. Gina was probably the first person I put in there as a district coach. So with PTrack is the Pennsylvania system that we use to manage and see all of what's going on across the Commonwealth in regards to the different activities of the network. So, but you log into PTrack and you will have access as a district coach. When you log in, you will see you have these three buttons. Now, I do know that there is a school district that your access is at the local facilitator level. So you will have access to one extra button that all of our network facilitators have access to, which is the recognition tab. For the purposes of a district coach, you only need access for state staff data, annual data, and documents. So back when I talked about the annual data that we get baseline for, and then every year you submit in the summer, this is the annual data that literally gets put into PTrack. Now, you may have had experiences where your local facilitator sent you a copy of this and said, just fill these numbers in, and then they go into PTrack and submit them for you. Moving forward, our hope is that as district coaches, that's one thing you can take off the plate of your network facilitator is inputting this annual data. The truth of the matter is there's somebody in your district who can readily avail themselves to this required data, and it's much easier than the network facilitator getting all involved in that. They'll definitely prompt you, but this is something as a district coach we would encourage you to be able to do. The next thing that is really, really important, right, Ron, is staff data. When you click on this button down here, we need you to put in who are the staff members that are on the core team. And one thing that's really super important is that you indicate who is the primary contact. And that primary contact receives all of our distribution information. That's who, if your building applies for recognition, that's who gets all the letters, congratulations, all of those things. So every year we need our local facilitators to prompt our district coaches to go in and update that building staff level of information. Now, here's the really important thing for everybody to know. We are going to have you practice, not today, but as part of this project, going in as a district coach, or if you're in as a local facilitator, that's fine. Going into any one of the buildings that you have in your, we haven't fixed it that there's a district level login for PTrack. So you go in by building. Pick any building you want to anchor this document to, and click on documents and upload the DSFI that you've completed. Now, let me just show you, and we're going to go into breakout rooms in a second. If you go in here, and I just want to check, did it switch to PTrack, Catherine? Yeah. If you go in here, you'll see, and Gina's going to put her DSFI up there. She's going to pick the first one on the list. She clicks on the building and she clicks documents. She'll click into documents. She will upload, you know, how you take something from your file. You put the description there and there, whatever you want the description to be. But the file type is all the way down at the bottom, District Systems Fidelity Inventory. And the school you'll pick it for is this one. And then you'll click upload. Let's say we go into Greater Nanticoke. I'm going into the elementary center. There's the staff. You add a staff person by doing this. You put them, whoever's the primary contact, they already have one, so it's mad at me. You click on that, but you put in each person's title and their status. The LEA options, this is where you'll put annual data, and documents, that's where you'll put the DSFI. What we can do is then you can run a report of a summary of all the uploaded documents. If you don't have a lot of schools, like you only have 1 or 2 schools, you can go into each one, but we're checking for over, what, Ron, 2,000 schools. When we're looking for, did you do the TFI? Did you do this? Did you do your action plan? That's the kind of reports that we're running. So what we do at the state level can easily be paralleled at the district level, at the county level. Now we're going to move into 8.3, and the one about feedback loop is there district or school level data systems in place to promote consistent collection, right? So are we identifying our schools, and are they being used to provide an 8. I duplicated this. Are they being used to provide feedback according to the district determined schedule that internal coaches share with school teams to use for problem solving? So even though we as a network apply this outside time frame for you with the baseline, and then every spring we're asking you to do it, you can include your own timeline, what you want, how often you want folks to be looking at. Maybe you want folks to look at the benchmarks of quality more than once a year. Maybe you want them to do it in the fall when they get back, and then do the TFI in the spring. Whatever it is that makes sense to you and your district, and maybe there's a school that's struggling. Maybe as a district leader, you see, we're going to talk about this, you're seeing that this one elementary school is struggling a little bit. So maybe they need to go back and do the benchmarks of quality, which is a much more detailed fidelity measure. And you can look at what are the parts of it that they're not hitting versus the TFI that tends to not be as detailed. So those are things that this feedback loop, as a district, what are you doing? 8.4 is differentiating supports. I kind of jumped ahead of myself. Just like we have the tiered supports for students, we as a district leadership team can have tiered supports for our buildings. So if we have a building that behaviorally, academically, equity-wise, like there's some buildings that need, 80% of our buildings are just fine. You know, they're rocking and rolling. Then we've got maybe a pocket here and a pocket there. Maybe we have some targeted buildings that need some support. And maybe there's one building that needs a lot of supports. But if all of your buildings are implementing tier 1, and you can see who needs more supports, and then you can start moving up the advanced tiers, you can apply this tiered logic to your buildings as a district. We do that with the network. We look at the data and where are we falling down in supporting our network facilitators. We don't tier our facilitators, we tier the supports that we're providing. We realize through our data protocol that we are not meeting the needs of our network facilitators in the area of advanced tier support. So in order to free up some of their time for both learning and application, we are now, two-pronged, we are now working very hard to build up this district coaches project. So you are helping us to create the longevity and the sustainability of this network. I just want you to know that. As far as assessment and evaluation, 8.5, assessment and evaluation on schedule and process is used to all implementation levels. We're looking at the student level, the classroom level, the district level. We're looking at what teams are implementing, what teams are improving the student connection to the district leadership team, and that there is an action plan. So just like we require our buildings to have action plans, as a process of the DSFI, we're going to require districts to have action plans. And so let's say you have, 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, and 10 elementaries, right? Of those, how many schools are implementing? How many are implementing with high fidelity? And how are you going to start as a district onboarding those other schools? And that's the work of this district leadership team. So as a district coach now, where can you go and see all those different assessments and see actually what the scores were? In PTrack, you're putting in your quantitative data and you're putting in that the TFI was completed. And that's kind of like that's a way for us to keep track of how you're completing all of the tasks in your district, in your buildings. But now you want to go in and you want to take a look at I'm differentiating, and I'm seeing my one elementary school is not making fidelity on the benchmarks of quality. I want to see what the staff survey said, the school safety survey said, or the school assessment survey. I as a district coach, I want to look at what were their responses. That's when you get into PBIS Apps. PBIS Apps is a national platform where all of that data is kept. We use both PTrack and PBIS Apps, and each one can give you different levels of information. So when you go on PBIS Apps, you are all familiar with it because that's where the self-assessment survey is housed. That's where the school safety survey is housed. That's where your network facilitators upload your TFI results. So what Ron has done, he's done it again, he's created, for those of you who did not have access, as district coaches, he's created your ability to be a coordinator for your district. When you go on PBIS Apps, you're going to see that they're going to change everything. So this will all be good until May 25th. Do you love the cover picture here? Anyway, you're going to go up on this little narrow black ribbon. Hopefully that will change because I don't know how many times I used to stare and say, where do I log in? And you log in over here. Then I have a whole bunch of things that show up on mine, but you're going to be primarily as a coordinator, a district coordinator concerned with PBIS Apps. So let's say as that district coordinator, you want to see, this is Boothwyn Elementary School, you want to look back and see how many people completed the school safety survey in 2001? 37. How does that compare to 2020? Not too bad. How many years have they done the benchmarks of quality? And if I want to look and see what their benchmark of quality looks like, I can look at that there. I can gather up the benchmarks of quality graphs for all of my buildings and share that with the stakeholders. And that, if you go back to Tim Runge's presentation from May 13th, which you will be getting, I will send it directly out to you district coach folks once that's ready. That's the kind of reports you can do for your school boards, for your parents, for back to school night. I mean, what is a back to school night without a graph? I mean, bar graphs, right? No, okay. So anyway, that's what you can do there. So if you click on this hyperlink in the PowerPoint, this will take you directly to PBIS Apps, and it will show you this overview of PBIS assessments, which is, this may be a new thing for you to have access to. You may have been using it all along, but you now have access to this. And you will be able to support your network facilitators with opening and closing surveys. You will work with your network facilitator to establish the windows for that and take over more of this monitoring. Are the surveys completed or not?
So this concludes the session on Domain 8. Thank you.